McCartney, 2009. Well, I was the first to notice it. These sort of things normally don't get discussed in interviews. I don't know why you brought this up. It's rather nasty, but if you must know, I mean, everybody wants to know everything that happened. Happened. That's a funny pun. Oh, we should have put that in an album, everything that happened. That should have been the name of an album, Happened. The Beatles, Happened. You know, Happen and Apple. That's funny because, you know, you make those slips of the tongue. Ringo's known for doing that. It's totally a malapropism that Ringo would have said, Happles. That's funny. But no, seriously, everything that happened within the Beatles, people want to know about it, so I'll tell you. You know, I think it was, it was around the time we were making Abbey Road, you know, and, well, I had gone into the latrine, you know. I just, you know, had to make Winkies, nothing special, you know. And I noticed that floating there was this Häägon. Just floating there. What was it? What is it, dear?
Tell them what a Häägon is. I don't think they know.
Oh, well, you assume everybody knows these things. A Häägon, you know, is a large, very firm, very hard, compacted, well-formed turd with a pointy end and little hairs coming out of it. Now, like I said, I don't say this for jokes. I'm sure it's going to end up on Howard Stern or whatever, you know. Whatever, I don't care. It's the truth. There's a very large, boisterous, just Häägon, just floating there, sort of wafting back and forth with, seemed to have a will of its own, you know. George Harrison, 1995. That day, well, Paul comes out of the bathroom and he's livid, he's red in the face. You know how Paul gets when something doesn't go his way. Ooh, better watch out, here comes Paul. You know, you better not cry, you better watch out, because Paul McCartney's coming to town. Anyway, that was the old children's song. So, he comes out, he's just blasted wide open with rage, and I said, what's wrong with Paul? I'm just sitting there, you know, quiet, as usual. You know, I'm the quiet Beatle, right? You know, whatever the news people have said, the media and all that with the quiet Beatle. But I was being quiet, and Paul's just romping around the room, just stamping his feet, and he's angry, and he's, and John's got this look on his face like he just ate the canary, you know, like the cat that ate the canary. John's just got this look on his face, and because, you know, they had been at loggerheads for a long time at this point, Paul and John. They were always doing things to get on each other's nerves. Well, Paul comes out, pissed, just angry, you know, angry is just ravenously angry. He sees that look on John's face, and so I don't know what's going on at this time. I'm just over there tuning me guitar. And Paul, he sees that look on John's face, and his hands ball up in a fist, and he's stuttering, you know. Paul was not one to stutter unless he got really angry, and he was just so beyond fumed that he couldn't get his words out. And all of a sudden he just says, "You left that Häägon in the toilet!" And John, you could almost see the halo over John's head. You could almost see it. Me? Now, you got to bear in mind, at this point, I didn't know what a Häägon was. I'd never heard the word in my life. I thought, what did John put in the toilet? You know, it was some sort of a prank or something. So I'm over there, you know, to say, oh God, here go Paul and John again. Ringo Starr, 1981. Oh, the story with the Häägon, yeah. Well, you know, apparently none of us were going to escape Abbey Road Studios that day unless we all went in and looked at it, because Paul insisted that we all go and look at it, you know, including John, who we could tell at that point it was John who left the dreaded Häägon floating in the blue water. Of course, the water was always blue. We had that chick who worked for us, who with the toilet cakes always making the water blue. So it was, you know, just sort of just this Häägon, you know.
Mr. Starr, could you please explain to our audience what a Häägon is?
Oh, I don't know what it is. Is this, you know, is this for cable? I mean, I don't know if I can say it.
Well, you know, please, just elucidate a bit.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's a big piece of shit. I mean, I don't need to be coy about it. I don't mind saying it. It's a big, hard piece of shit with hair coming out of it and a pointy end. You know, it's a sharp-ended, hairy turd. And John had left a giant one, at least 9 or 10 inches long, just floating there in the toilet at Abbey Road. And, he obviously did it to piss off Paul.
John Lennon, 1974.
Oh, well, I'll tell you off camera what I did one time, Mike. I'll tell you, I left a Häägon for Paul. Because...
What's a Häägon, John?
A Häägon? Oh, you... Well, it's a type of shit.
What do you mean? Like, shit? Literally?
Yes, a piece of poop. It's a big, giant, fucking, large, sharp-ended, brown, sort of blackish, hairy turd. Big one. I left it for Paul. I ate nothing but rice and cheese for days to leave that for Paul, to tell him what I thought of him.
And what did Paul do?
Oh, it was gorgeous. Oh, it was... Paul comes out, you know, of the bathroom. I don't even think he relieved himself. Well, he couldn't have. I know he didn't, because I went in and he forced us all to go look at it. He forced me to look at it as if I hadn't inspected my own fucking handiwork. No, Paul had us, but he comes out of the bathroom just clenching his fist and he's grinding his teeth. I think he broke his dental work. He got so angry at that Häägon. And he says, "Somebody left a Häägon in the toilet!" And I'm just over there. I mean, I'm telling you, Mike, inside, I'm uproarious with laughter inside. But I have amazing self-control when I need to muster it up. I didn't want him to know quite yet who had done it, although he could tell by that I sort of had that smirk on my face, you know. That's the one thing I can't hide, is that smirk. No matter what happens, you know, you always know I did it, you know. And George is just over there. He just keeps tuning his guitar like none of it. And Paul, who left that fucking Häägon? Who left that giant, dreadful, beguiling Häägon in the fucking toilet? And he's screaming and he's angry. And, it was a scene. It was a scene. I got the reaction I wanted.
George Martin, 1998.
Well, you know, all I know is that I was up in the booth, and I was, you know, working on some sound effects that we were doing for the album, and, everything was calm, perhaps a bit too calm, if you ask me, because, you know, in those days, in the later years, that Paul and John were always at each other, practically strangling one another, and, so I thought nothing of it when Paul went off to the bathroom. So, Paul comes out of the lavatory, but there's a different Paul who emerged and went in. It was like a booth of transformation. I mean, he goes in there as calm and cool as a cucumber. You know, he just smoked a big hookah full of some amazing sensimilla, and he was as calm as a cucumber. There's a different Paul who came out of that bathroom. He comes out in a fit of rage, and I saw the way he was stamping around the studio, and I said, uh-oh, something's happened, and I had no idea. None of us did. Well, in retrospect, John knew what was going on, but he was playing it up, you know. So Paul starts screaming, "Who left that fucking Häägon in the toilet? That big, giant, fucking sticky Häägon!" And I looked around and John's got that smirk on his face, and I said, oh boy, yeah, this album's never going to be finished if these two keep doing this sort of thing to each other.
Ringo Starr, 1991.
Well, you know, so Paul stomping around the studio, you know, who let the fucking Häägon, the Häägon, and finally, John pipes up and says, I don't know what you're talking about. And Paul, you could see the perspiration just dripping down Paul's face. I mean, when Paul gets mad, I'm telling you, mate, you better watch out. You know, he normally keeps his cool, but when Paul gets mad, you know, it's like a vortex. It's pandemonium when Paul gets angry. Pandemonium. You know. And he goes over and grabs John by the collar and says, "Come in here and look at this, you know." He says, "In fact, all of you, I want all of you to come in here and look at it." It's a very small bathroom at Abbey Road, you know. But we all crowded in. We had to. I mean, Paul would not let us not do this. There's no way that we were ever going to go home and sleep that night or that day, however we were sleeping in those days. There's no way we were going to go eat dinner or go shag some broad or whatever we were trying to do that day. It didn't matter, because Paul was angry and the world had to stop. So, you know, I put down me sticks, I was tuning me kit, you know, whatever. Who cares about the album? Let's go into the toilet and look at the giant turd, at the Häägon, whatever. Let's all go look at the Häägon, because Paul insists upon it. John Lennon, 1980. So, you know, Paul was so just I thought he was going to have a heart attack, you know, cardiac arrest. I thought Paul was going to keel over dead. I thought his blood pressure must have been 500 over 300. I mean, he was absolutely beyond repair at this point. And he grabs me, and I got to tell you, I'm trying not to laugh at this point, because I got the reaction I wanted out of Paul. Well, he insisted not only me, but George Martin too, both Georges, and Ringo. He insisted, I think, I don't know if Neil, I don't know, I forget who was there. Marianne Faithfull might have been there. I don't remember if Billy Preston. He got everyone in the studio, and he says, "You're going to come in here and you're going to look at this Häägon, and you're going to see what he's done." Because now he's accusing me openly. He's pointing at me like a schoolmarm with that pointy Paul McCartney finger, you know. "You better watch out, you better not cry," so he used to sing behind his back. "You better watch out, I'm telling you why, Paul McCartney's coming to town." Yeah, he'd probably start the same reaction if he heard that song. So he grabbed me by the collar, he's dragging me by the collar. I'm surprised he didn't grab me by the ear, knowing Paul. But he grabs me, he drags me, and he insists that all the rest come following into this little tiny bathroom. So, I mean, we did. George Harrison, 1995. Also, you know, he says, "George, you too," and he points to me and the other, you know, George Martin, our producer. And there were some other people there too. I think Billy Preston was in the studio. And Billy Preston's just as mesmerized and perplexed by this as I was. I'd never heard the word Häägon in my life, and I didn't know why it would be in a toilet. But Billy Preston's he's just happy to be there. You know, he's sort of a young up-and-comer, and he's getting to work with the Beatles. He's going to do whatever Paul says, because everybody sort of perceived Paul as the boss. Although, you know, in more quiet times with the rest of us, we didn't think of it that way, but we let him think that. So, to make a long story short, he convinces us, in his own way, to all crowd into this little shoebox of a bathroom. And he's pointing into the toilet. "Look at that bloody fucking Häägon. Look at, I've never seen such a disgusting Häägon," he's saying. "Look at that horrible, dreadful, nasty Häägon." And at this point, I saw John piss himself. Paul McCartney, 2010. Well, you know, I didn't think it was funny, you know, to leave a Häägon in the toilet and not flush it. You know, you're going to have a bowel movement, you flush the toilet. I mean, we're taught this from childhood. You flush the toilet, you know, after you use it. John thought it would be funny to get my goat by not flushing the toilet and having me discover the remnants of this proprietary diet that he had been eating for days to produce this sort of turd, this espèce de merde, to produce it. And I grabbed John by the back of his neck, grabbed his hair, and put his face in the toilet, you know, and he's bubbles and bubbles and bubbles. I said, look at that! Look what you did, John! No, it gets me angry to this fucking day. It gets me angry that he did that. Fucking gets me angry. God rest his soul, John. God rest your soul, buddy. But you fucking made me angry that day, John. And I'm putting his face and I'm giving him what I found out was later called a swirly. I gave John a swirly. And look at what you did. And then he's in there and the Häägon's bouncing off of his face. And George, you know, says, Paul, don't you think he's had enough? And I said, no, he'll never have enough. And I'm just drowning John at this point in the toilet, which I didn't know I was doing, because I didn't realize how long he'd been under. George Martin, 1999. Oh, and Paul just forced John's head into the toilet. Didn't even take off his glasses. You know, and John's head is in the toilet, and he's bubbling and gurgling and struggling, and Paul is very strong. Paul had him down, and, you know, I'm just standing there, what is going on? You know, and I had seen the Häägon. The Häägon was just bouncing off of John's face, and John and the Häägon were one at this point, and I thought, oh God, you know, what's Paul doing? I said, okay, well, he's obviously making a point, and so, I don't know, after about 10 seconds of this, I said, you gotta let John up for air. And he wouldn't. So Ringo says, Paul, stop it, you're killing him. And Paul's, you put that fucking bloody dreadful Buddha-sized goddamn Egyptian Häägon in that toilet just for me to have to look at your hairy fucking Häägon. And Ringo, please, Paul, you're killing him. He needs air, you know. Ringo Starr, 2005. Well, it got bad. You know, Paul's temper had gotten the best of him, you know, which, you know, did not happen that much. He did have a temper, you know, Paul does. He has a temper, but, I mean, for him to be drowning John in the toilet like that, it was something. And I said, Paul, he's had enough. He looks at me and his eyes are red. The red eyes of Beelzebub, you know, he's not had enough until I say he's had enough. And Paul's voice had gotten lower. I mean, I think the demon had taken over Paul. Huh? To this day, I'm telling you, something supernatural happened. When Paul saw that Häägon, I'm telling you, something took over Paul. The rage was beyond any sort of, you know, normal rage. I mean, I've seen people become enraged over the death of their child, but I've never seen anyone as angry as Paul was that day after having seen that Häägon. So now I'm starting to pull back on Paul. I'm trying to pull John's head out of the bowl with his hair. I'm like, I'm probably hurting John, but at least I'm saving his life. You know, Paul McCartney, 1999. Well, you know, it's been blown out of proportion that I got that angry. I wasn't, you know, I was just playing a game. I wasn't really that mad, you know. Okay, maybe a little mad. Well, the more I think about it, I was pretty fucking mad, but I wasn't going to drown him. What am I going to do? Yeah. I'm Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Am I going to drown John Lennon in the toilet? Oh, that'd go over real good. Oh, yeah. No, I was just, but they're pulling me off. Maybe I'd lost track of time. Forgot how long he'd been down there. John Lennon, 1978. So he's got me in the toilet. And at first I thought that was rather drastic. I mean, I'll admit I played a prank on him. I know. I left a Häägon in there for Paul to see. A big, long Häägon. All hairy. You know, big, long, black and brown, ugly, smelly turd. You know, I did. I played a prank on Paul, I admit it, but Paul reacted with such fervor, with such fury, drowning me in the toilet. At first, I thought he was just dunking me head in the bowl, which was bad enough, of course, because that Häägon was in there, and I did not want my face rubbing up against this Häägon, but that's what was to happen. You know, so now I had poo on me face. Well, I thought, okay, he's certainly got me back, but no, he's dunking me, and she's dunking me like some mafia boss. He's like making me confess or something. I don't know what he was trying to kill me, and I couldn't really hear what was going on because of the swishing around of the water, and that blue water in your mouth. That's no good with combined with Häägon juice and everything. George Harrison, 1989. So yeah, well, you know, Ringo and I. And George Martin, and I'm pretty sure Billy Preston was there. We had to pull Paul off of John. It took all of us. So you see, there was Ringo, me, and Billy Preston. You know, all of us. And George Martin. It took at least 4 people to pull Paul off of John and stop him from drowning John in that goddamn Häägon infested toilet. And finally, I mean, it took all of our might. I had to kick Paul in the balls to distract him, and, you know, I think if I hadn't done that, we'd have never won that battle. You know, Ringo Starr, 1989. So finally, there was this silence, you know. John's just sitting on the bathroom floor, you know, gasping for breath, wondering what happened. Soaking wet, his head has just got that blue toilet water, you know, and he's got little poo stains on his face, and Paul looked like I don't know, he looked like some sort of a possessed Rottweiler, you know. Me and George Martin and George Harrison and Billy Preston, I mean, we were all just holding Paul back. I mean, if we had had restraints, we'd have put him in restraints. I mean, he was just, you know. And then Paul starts screaming, "You gonna put a Häägon like that? You should have been dead, you bastard! Putting a Häägon like that in the toilet! There's something wrong with you! You should never make babies! There's something wrong with you! Putting a big Häägon like that for me to see! My eyes should never behold such ignorance and rudeness of such a Häägon floating there!" And then John did the worst thing he could have possibly done. He started laughing. I said, "Oh no." So Paul lunges for John again, and luckily, you know, we had all been between him and John, so we were able to stop him. But Paul, I mean, we had to sedate him. You know, it was bad. John Lennon, 1979. Well, I mean, it was bad enough being drowned in the toilet and hearing Paul keep repeating the word, Häägon this and Häägon that, Häägon, 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 and even in my weakened state of having almost been drowned in shit, I started laughing. That's just me. I've got this wicked sense of humor. And when Paul saw me laughing, he lunged again, and thank God the boys were there. They stopped him from killing me. He would have killed me. Oh, he was mad. So, they said, "Here, Paul, have a beer." And they put some Secanol or some Quaalude, I don't know what it was. But they put some sort of a downer in his beer, and he calmed down. And I think we did 2 of us, you know, that day. 2 of us riding nowhere, spending someone's hard-earned pay. And we went on as if nothing had ever happened. But, yeah, Paul can get very angry.